Good evening, and welcome to the first and only vice presidential debate of 2012.
Hi, how are you doing?
It's okay, boys, to get a little wave in for the families.
Hi everyone.
Let's start with taxes. If your ticket is elected, who will pay more in taxes? Who will pay less? And we're starting with Vice President Biden.
The middle class will pay less, and people making $1 million or more will begin to contribute slightly more. We're arguing that the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy should be allowed to expire. Of the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy, $50 billion goes to people making over $1 million. By continuing that tax cut, 120,000 families will get an additional $500 billion in tax relief in the next 10 years. Their income is an average of $8 million per year. We want to extend permanently the Bush middle-class tax cut. These guys won't allow us to. We say let's have a vote. Let's have a vote on the middle-class tax cut, and let's have a vote on the upper-class tax cut. Let's go ahead and vote on it. They're saying no. They're holding hostage the middle-class tax cut to the super-wealthy.
Congressman,
Our entire premise of these tax reform plans is to grow the economy and create jobs. It's a plan that's estimated to create 7 million jobs. We think that government taking 28% of a family and business income is enough. President Obama thinks that the government ought to be able to take as much as 44.8%. Oh, if you taxed every person in successful small business making over $250,000 at 100%, it'd run the government for 98 days. Double these taxes, the deficit would be $300 billion. You see, there are not enough rich people and small businesses to tax to pay for all their spending. That's why we're saying we need fundamental tax reform. What we are saying is lower tax rates across the board and close loopholes, primarily to the higher income people. We have 3 bottom lines. Don't raise the deficit, don't raise taxes on the middle class, and don't lower the share of income that is borne by the high-income earners. He'll keep saying this $5 trillion plan. I suppose it's been discredited by 6 other studies, and even their own deputy campaign manager acknowledged that it wasn't correct.
well, let's talk about this 20%. You have refused yet again to offer specifics on how you pay for that 20% across-the-board tax cut. Do you actually have the specifics, or are you still working on it?
Different than this administration, we actually want to have big bipartisan agreements. You see, I understand the
Do you have the specifics? Do you have the math? Do you know exactly what you're doing? And Mr. Vice President, don't laugh. Do you have the math? Since you gentlemen are not prepared to answer, let me introduce our experts: Hashi Kupmeister, PhD, and Millicent Bright, Martian physicist and undocumented alien. Hashi, would you like to explain to our esteemed guests the mathematics of their tax plans? In layman's terms. Please.
Certainly. Glad to. It's just arithmetic. When you reduce the tax rate by 20%, the wealthy get a tax break of $725,715, and the middle class get an $810 tax break.
Which means it would decrease tax revenue and increase the budget deficit by $456 billion in 2015. That would almost double what our deficit is projected to be in a few years.
Now, because of the $456 billion, you are going to eliminate deductions, but you don't know which ones.
Yes, say goodbye to the child tax credit, the education tax credit, the charitable donation deduction, the mortgage interest deduction, etc., etc. Very bad.
The bottom line: no matter what you do, the wealthy get a tax cut and the middle class gets screwed. Or guess, nada.
In simple terms, everyone except the wealthy is getting a tax increase. Not good, not kosher.
So, Congressman, it looks like cutting taxes increases the budget deficit. Now what about the Democratic plan?
OB's plan would raise the top 2 tax brackets from 33% to 36% and from 35% to 39.6%. There are not enough taxpayers in this group to avoid adding to the deficit.
No matter how you slice it and dice it, it's hard to avoid that this is a tax increase on a significant share of small business owners.
The bottom line is, $250,000 is a ridiculous cutoff point. It's more political than practical. And then, of course, the public has no details on most of OB's plan.
Well, Mr. Vice President, Congressman, what have you got to say about that? Speak up.
This can't be.
No, it can't. Not on TV.
Time to go. I can't go back to Mars, because I eliminated the corporate tax loopholes.
Don't worry, you have not seen the end of these guys.